Welcome to part 3 of my parental alienation series. It's time for 3 parental alienation case summaries. We'll start with the 2023 case of Bruce and Bruce. This case involved 2 subject children, one born in 2010 and one born in 2013. So this case was heard in November of 2023, and the father hadn't seen the children since January of 2023. They had been living with the mother. The court explained in paragraph 53 that the mother's allegations against the father fell into several categories: physical abuse of the children, the risk of SA of the elder child, and the children's exposure to family violence perpetrated by the father upon her. The mother claimed to the single expert that the children had been hit in the face, whipped with a belt, and hit across the back by the father. The most significant allegation was of the father allegedly assaulting the younger child late in 2021. Acting on the mother's allegations, the police issued a provisional family violence order against the father to protect the children. The children were interviewed by the Child Welfare Agency in relation to those allegations in December 2021, at which time the youngest child complained of his back being hurt, but the agency accepted the father later plausibly explained that the child had a slight injury described by the doctor as being a graze. The investigation was terminated without the father being charged in any way or with any offence. The father expressly denied that he caused those injuries and contended any injuries sustained by the children in his care would have been merely childhood misadventure. The court says at paragraph 50, of course, if the children do require protection from the risk of harm posed to them by the father, as the mother alleges, then that objective must be prioritised. But if they don't require such protection, so the mother's allegations aren't substantiated, then their current alienation from the father must be rectified. That could only be achieved by the reversal of their residence, because the mother will not genuinely countenance them spending time with him while they live with her. The single expert said, and I accept, that if the mother's allegations of misconduct against the father are unfounded, then she is infringing on the children's rights by preventing them from enjoying a meaningful relationship with him. Consequently, it is necessary to scrutinise the multiple allegations made by the mother. The following is stated from paragraph 83. By comparison, the father and the ICL allege the children are susceptible to emotional damage caused by the mother's conduct, from which they need protection. Their case was that the mother's conduct amounts to ABUSC as defined by the Act, Section 4, subsection 1, because it causes the children to suffer serious psychological harm. So alienating behaviours can amount to serious psychological harm, and thereby engages Section 60cc2b of the Act as a primary consideration. Their case enjoyed the strong support of the single expert. The court carefully scrutinised all of the evidence that related to the allegations of risk of harm against the father and came to the view that the allegations were not substantiated and the father did not pose an unacceptable risk of harm to the children as alleged by the mother. So from paragraph 86, the single expert said, and I accept, the mother's polarised opinions and emotions are likely to have been transmitted either overtly or covertly to the children. The single expert observed how the behaviour of the mother and the maternal grandmother transmitted their anxiety to the children. There cannot be any real doubt about it because the mother readily agreed to the proposition in cross-examination. In answer to a question posed about the likelihood of her contribution to the children experience anxiety about seeing the father, she said, absolutely, the children are perceptive. In answer to a question, she said, I'm sure the children would be aware of my dislike for the father's wife. From 87. Even if the allegations of the father's ill treatment of the children are hypothetically accepted as being true, they are not such as to rationally explain them having such a high level of fear and loathing of him. Assuming the mother gave truthful evidence about what the children said to her, the most likely explanation for it is they have become aware of the mother's resistance to their retention of the relationships with the father, and the path of least resistance for them is to tell the mother what they expect she wants to hear from them. Paragraph 89. The single expert concluded that the mother lacks insight and is attempting to negatively influence the children's relationship with the father. However, it hardly matters whether it is intentional or inadvertent. If it is intentional, the mother gave no indication of her contrition for it or of her commitment to desist. If it is inadvertent, she is likely not conscious of the destructive dynamic and is powerless to stop it. Paragraph 90. The elder child is at risk of developing a psychological disorder if she remains living with the mother. The younger child is likely to have his relationship with the father entirely severed if he remains living with the mother. Paragraph 92. I'm satisfied the evidence demonstrates the children have sustained emotional harm, properly described as serious psychological harm, by reason of their subjection and exposure to the mother's emotionally abuse behaviour, and further, they are at risk of suffering more harm of that type if they remain living with her. The children require protection from such harm. That can only be achieved by changing the children's residence. Ultimately, the court made orders for a change of residence, so the children went from living with mum to living with dad, and the court also made an order for dad to have sole parental responsibility. Next, we'll take a look at the 2018 case of Goldman and Goldman. This case involved two subject children. One was aged 11 and the other was aged 13. Since separation, the children had continued to live primarily with their mother. Her Honour found at paragraph 7 that the wife was focused on punishing the husband and turning the children's affections away from him, causing emotional harm to the children and posing an unacceptable risk of harm continuing. It was found that the children, according to the single expert, had a close dependent relationship with the wife which was enmeshed, thus not conducive to good future mental health. Taking the single expert, Dr. G's evidence as a whole, there is a recommendation of a suspension of time for a period of between 1 and 6 months, although in cross-examination he did express a preference for 3 to 6 month period. There was a positive recommendation against the husband's proposal of 36 months. Justice Cleary ordered that the wife's time with the children be supervised and that her time not begin until 4 weeks had elapsed from the date of the order. The father appealed, arguing that due to risk of harm, there should be no contact between the children and the mother for a period of 36 months, or as otherwise recommended by the single expert. And the father's application was ultimately dismissed by the full court. Lastly, we'll take a look at the 2023 case of Obonis and Alvari. The child in this case was a 7-year-old girl, and the mother asserted that the father posed an unacceptable risk of harm to the child. She made allegations of family violence and child SA, which she said was perpetrated by the father upon the child. From paragraph 262, the court said, "In my view, X will benefit from maintaining a relationship with both of her parents. Being able to do so is fundamentally important to X's sense of self and her understanding of her identity. Both her parents are extremely important people in X's life, and she loves them deeply. Aside from the conflict, both parents have much to offer X, who clearly delights in their attention and love." Having carefully listened to and considered the evidence, I do not share the mother's concerns that the father has ABUSED or may ABUSE X, or allow her to be ABUSED by anyone else. As already set out, I do not accept the father poses an unacceptable risk to X, nor, in the absence of medical evidence, do I regard his interactions with X or parenting of her as causing her pain and suffering or contributing to her medical conditions. However, the mother's fixed belief that the father poses a risk to the child and the mother's overholding of the child in response to that belief on the basis that she believes she is acting protectively gives me considerable concern that if X remains living primarily with the mother will be unable to encourage X to maintain a relationship with her father. Rather, it seems highly likely the mother will continue to undermine that relationship and encourage X to regard her father as unfit, unsafe, and unable to provide appropriate care for her. I am also very concerned that if the mother continues to have primary care for X, she is likely to become exposed to her mother's beliefs. X may come to believe that the father is unsafe and that he has subjected her to ABUSE or seeks to do so, and that he is causing her to become unwell. I note Miss J expressed that if the allegations continued, X may form a sense of unease and a belief that she is not safe or able to trust her caregivers. I share that concern. Ms. J noted that there was already a dynamic emerging, according to the mother, whereby X was becoming resistant and refusing to spend time with the father. Ms. J expressed concern that if X remains in the mother's primary care, she may ultimately reject the father. And in this case, the court made orders for a change of residence. So for the child to live with the father instead of the mother, and for the father to have sole parental responsibility in relation to medical and educational issues. That concludes my series on the topic of parental alienation. I'll pop the citation to all 3 cases in the comment section down below. If you're interested in this topic, you can read the entire judgments for free using Ostley. As always, this video contains information, not legal advice. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer.